Foundation Course Kabbalah, Part 2, Lesson 41. Rabbi Michael-ben-Pesach, Portnaar. In this lesson we will see the birth of Adam and Chava and the sin of Adam. What was the sin of Adam? Where it led to, etc. The previous lesson we talked about the purpose of creation, and now we're going to connect it a little bit. How did it get so far that the first man Adam sinned, and what is sinning, and etc. Completely on the right, we see on the drawing Galgalta, Ab, and Sag, the first receptions. Here we see at which height everything is positioned, occurs. Height is very important for us in Kabbalah. Two aspects, two spiritual bodies, objects, are the same level by any situation means that they are identical in characteristics. If lower rises to higher, comes to the same level, he will be just as the higher. Conversely, if higher drops to lower, that portion which falls to lower will be just as the lower. We also need to know that the whole structure of the worlds, the entire spiritual ladder, rises and falls at the same time. So not that one object rises and the others continue to wait, remain as it were standing. If something goes up, then the whole spiritual ladder, up to Ein Sof, also goes up. We must never think that it is different. We don't always say it so because we assume that people already know. You must know that with every smallest correction that the man does here on earth, and therefore if you perform a correction, means that you also rise according to the correction made. And then equally all worlds will rise as it were with you. And at the same time, the solid structure of the worlds also remains existing. So the minimal state will always exist. We speak about the minimal state, for example, the state in which all were seated, all the worlds created, and today we come to know it all. We said after three receptions, Bina lowered down to also let the light below shine under Parsa. And then was the first sign of, as it were, a duality, whereby until the Parsa a new end was made, whereby above the Parsa to the Tabur light may be received, which is, as it were, the root of good. And below the Parsa, everything under the Parsa, there may not come light, which we say is, as it were, the root of evil. Two forces, Hasadim, mercy, or below, severity. Here we see the beginning of it, and then creation will evolve further. For here, from the Tabur to the Parsa, there was another addition to receive the light, but there no more. Then remains under the Parsa no hope to ever enlighten it. It cannot be so. A new structure was created. We first call Nekudim. In Nekudim were the upper portion and lower portion, as it were, shaken, so that in each portion, in each piece, then it was broken, as it were, in order to have it in each piece both elements. If both elements are there, the good as well as the evil, as it were, a good thing can help the other evil. So where no light can come, to somewhat let light get there. And that was in the world Nekudim, as we call it. Everything falls in place later. Now we go through it globally. Next was the world Atzilut. The world Atzilut is the world of corrections. Then everything what was broken in the world Nekudim, now it had to be rebuilt. And then we said, from the best pieces, from the best shards, a tik was built up. And what was less fine, the next was A'a, which is Arichanpin. What are all these kind of things? We're all still learning. The following in terms of quality is Avi, Abba Ve'ima, and then Ze'ah, Ze'rampin, and Malchut. So that was all built, and also of the other. So anything where there was light, which only contains good in itself, only in varying degrees and different qualities, therefrom the world Atzilut was built, where all the light was received therefrom. From all that good shards was built Atzilut. Later we will see what shards though they were. When it was all mixed together, and we call it good and evil, but it is not yet good and evil. But let's say good is what was up from Tabor to Parsa is good. That we call good. And below, under Hasidim, we say evil, because we will later have to do with here. And at the bottom is evil, which variations are now possible. These pieces are good, that contain already the good in themselves, and in the good is also good. That it may also be true, good fragments within evil. It's all of the top portion, when we have a good shard with less good shards from the Tabor to the Parsa. And it could also be that evil, as it were, bottom part, still sitting in their good. And the fourth possibility is evil, and therein is also evil. Everything is taken from the worst lumps, as it were. Of good in which is good, goodness has also gradations. Good, which is connected with other good. From this was built the world Atzilut, also in varying degrees. Here in the world of Atzilut it was broken. First, here, Bina, the extension of Bina, there was for the first time the separation between the good and evil part. Between where the light comes, we say that it is good, and where the light does not come is evil. In the next stage was first transmitted light, whereby bottom part, where was evil, could not receive the light, and therefore was broken. Everything was broken, and after the breaking it was necessary to correct it. And that was needed. Really was all in the mind of the Creator. How He has invented it all, it's ingenious. Why was it necessary to break it? We have said otherwise half are in the light and half are in darkness, and that was not the purpose of creation. The purpose of creation, that all light could shine to our world, and that humans and all other creatures could exist there. And then there's Atzilut. Good. The shards of what is good can merge. There Atzilut was made. Atzilut is good plus good. Then from evil, where is good, therefrom worlds were built. So worlds means Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. That is a lesser, more evil part, evil with good mixed. The main element is taken from below the Parsa, and there are also elements, particles of good. From there these worlds were made. Less quality of light, and that's why in the worlds we see the difference in quality. Bria, is we said, is 90% good and 10% bad. Yetzirah is 50-50, and Asiya is 90% bad and 10% good. All because of difference of those shards, from which those worlds were then drawn up after the break. And of evil, in which evil is, can you build something? No, you cannot build with it, which remains low. It will stay seated. So first, Atzilut, good, in which is good. Afterwards, the worlds were built. That is evil, wherein is good, that we have built. This is fixed, which we cannot be disconnected anymore, and also through good deeds or bad deeds of man. It exists, so we can say we do not see it, we do not feel it, it is up to us, but it exists. Absolute minimum, what is given to us. But evil, confluent with evil, you cannot do anything with it. Does there exist such a thing as waste of what was to be built? Absolutely not. From here, where evil is inside evil, even that will be refined when, after all our corrections, after 6,000 years, the light comes from Keter of the Messiah, as we have said, which is so strong that it can brighten even these pieces. That is evil, within it also evil, where there will exist no more evil. But also therefrom is something what you will see that is also belongs to the creation, but after the correction, after the arrival of the Mashiach. And this good, where evil is, that is something we can correct. That's something we'll learn, that is our good deeds of human beings and our fulfillment of the prescriptions, laws of the universe, which is given to us. So good in which is evil, that's up to us, given to man to correct that. And there we see that we are partners in creation. You see? Everything before that, good in which is good, was corrected by high forces, by the Creator himself. These are all covers of light itself, coarsenings of light. Evil, in which is good, that was also by above, by upper hand, was done by the Creator himself. Those two are not. Those are fixed things which are corrected by the Creator himself. But in good wherein is evil, that we can do through prayers. We will learn what is all about. Man, rising of man, the ascent of prayer, which man, only human can do that, whereby man calls for correction. Then it can be lifted up. Correct, where also the evil transforms, as it were, in the good, in usable. So we now see those four particles, two corrected by a higher hand, and one of them is up to us to correct, and therefore we see that without our interference. I have already said nothing comes from above when from below there is not asked for it, because we have always to deal with that, with these fragments, which also are fallen down, which only through our inner behavior, absolutely initially by demand for correction, which will be corrected. So the leftovers, the important leftovers from the light, the correction is only up to man to correct it. Those are the shards which were all built after the breaking of Kilim, of all the connections between those Sfirot. Then Atzilut, so above the Parsah. Between the Tabur and the Parsah, that is the world Atzilut, all good things come to us. All our hope is from there every day. And below Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. And where are then those shards, those difficult shards? Those are located somewhere under the Asiyah. There are those good and evil, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, and below them sit still evil and evil, but all still above the point of our world, because it's all elements of spiritual world, which also belong to the spiritual world, which have not yet been corrected, but which will be corrected. It is in any case above the point of our world. These are the four elements. That is Atzilut and the three worlds, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. And below is where we call it the place where the impure forces are. Impure forces without light, but good wherein is evil. It provides nutrition to the impure forces. Impure forces is something that lives only at the expense of what is still light, which are still pieces of light, which it can get a hold of, as we here below, the Asiyah, the good wherein is evil, pull up, is always lesser breeding ground for these impure forces, you see, until we have done all our work. Then they will have nothing more to take advantage of. As we pull up more of the good where evil is, then drops the evil more and more down. And after 6,000 years, it is as if it were done. And then the light of Keter comes, of the Mashiach. And then also the evil within evil is corrected. But we will learn later in the Zohar. Zohar will teach us feeling. One learns Kabbalah, one speaks of the Sfirot, Keter, Chochmah, Bina, Zeah, and Malchut, but what is it? What the impure forces are? That is hard to explain. Only Zohar can teach us to feel what are these spiritual powers. What are unclean powers, classifications thereof, palpable classification. It is very special, but first we begin to understand the overall picture, and further Zohar will teach us feeling for the spiritual. What is the spiritual? That's life. That's spiritual. What then is spiritual? That's why I always say that your mind can absolutely not help you to understand. But the spiritual means timeless, which is not bound by time, by place, motionless, and yet dynamic. That should gradually grow, whereby you are going to experience. Timeless. How can a person in our world experience what is timeless? Absolutely impossible. Okay, if you use a little cocaine or something else, then you feel like you are in a timeless space, but that's only because it dulls his mind and feeling. But if you're completely sober and then experience the timeless, that is a matter of purifying yourself. Purification of yourself, and then you can step by step experience it. It is impossible to explain. You cannot explain it. And therefore, you cannot explain it. It's like someone who is in a prison. was born in a prison, never been outside the prison, which is in a basement or something, and you come to that person, like Kabbalists do, and tell us, come out. And he tells us how it is to be free. And of course, we think here in the Netherlands, who has more freedom? Of course, from the outside, that is so, absolutely. And all the conditions are there to spiritually come free, but then tells a Kabbalist what it is to someone who is trapped his whole life, what it means to be free. What does it mean to be free? When you come out, then the sun shines, the sea, and everything he tells, and the other, can he understand? You understand. He can dream about it, but then he looks at his mattress, the stench around him. He looks around and says, this is familiar, this is sure, here I have certainty. Okay, it stinks, but it's from me, and that is the assurance of a certain position, as we. Like the Kabbalists tell us, we cannot understand, and they do not even want to go out of the prison from our world, and that is what we are going to undertake. If it is just peeking through a small opening, that is where we dream. That is what we dream about. Then it's already enough. Radiation comes out of it, so we can already experience freedom. That is the whole purpose of our course, that we do that together, that you want to crawl out, that we do not imagine that we live in freedom, out of freedom, all free and happy. That's all pretense. It's been a great achievement, but without spiritual freedom, without being able to build in yourself dimensions where you build a peace in yourself in which you can experience the timeless and not being bound in one place, that's horrible. Not bound by time, not place bound, and that's all up to you. There we can build it all. We said what has not been corrected was all built. We said that drops down somewhere at the end of the world. I see, yeah, and there are all. And slowly it is corrected. Step by step it is corrected. Personal and social. We mean the whole society goes forward also, step by step. Now, the next designated by the Roman too, which represents the birth of the worlds. How this came about. Why on that spot and not another place? Let's disregard. Comes much later. One thing we must always keep in mind, that what I marked with Roman numeral 1, which is fixed place of the worlds, fixed position of the worlds, and always remains so. We always go out of this state, and that is the state of the world after the fall of Adam. And that is also now exactly the same, the state which has been fixed now after the fall of Adam. 6,000 years, this state remains. The whole spiritual ladder will always exist, even if fig goes up, down, which are additions always. For example, if someone does a good deed or corrects himself or wins a peace over his evil, then it goes. It affects all the worlds. Then all the worlds go together, as it were, like a domino effect. All linked to each other, and they go all up a bit. But it's always additive. But the solid state of the world, not only the lower, but also the upper world, Adam Kadmon, plus the other 4 worlds. Above the Tabur, we have the worlds Aka, Galgalta, Ab, Sag, and 2 more not mentioned worlds. And then under the Tabur, we have the worlds Atzilut, from Tabur to the Parsa, spiritual world. And then we have the 3 worlds below, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, 5 worlds. Upstairs we have nothing. We do not talk about it much because all our correction comes of Atzilut. Above that we will talk much, but not above it. It's just drawn so that we see the connections from Ein Sof's to our world. 1 is always a solid state of the worlds. Remember that very well. And the man that will come later. 2 shows the state of the worlds at their birth, at their genesis. We see that it was a little higher. In the creation of the worlds, they were a little higher than now, 1 step higher. We see that Atik is A'a, Arichampin, and A'a is Abba and Ima. It has shifted. You can see in the drawing Abba and Ima in the first, and in the second you see Abba and Ima is higher, a step higher than now. That's a lot. Do you see where the Bina is? Always look at the solid state as it is now and what we are discussing. We currently are talking about the state of the birth of the worlds. 2. Look good to Bria. Bria is at a higher level than its solid state. The condition of the birth of the worlds is indicated by 2 and the condition of man's birth, because after the birth of the worlds was also born man. First has to because the worlds are the outer part of creation and man is the inner part of creation. What did the Creator do? He first created an outer atmosphere that suits humans, and there he put the man in. And at that origin, it was so that if man would do corrections, then the worlds would ascend with him. So it was before the fall of Adam. What is drawn here is Roman numeral 2, is the birth of the worlds. I have already indicated from Bria, I also indicated some parts in Sfirot to show in which worlds is the man at his birth. And at Roman numeral 3, I showed the man where he at his birth. Of course, the man is in the world, but it is difficult to draw. The world Bria 2, in it is the head of Adam 3. Now look, yet how high Adam was at his birth. That is the Bria. Now, 1. And the Bria was already. Where is the Parsa? At Bria, at the birth of the worlds, 2, there's already the head of Adam. What does head mean? We're always on our earth. The whole point is that the spiritual, the true reality, the light, will be brought here on earth, and not that it's somewhere cosmic, it's somewhere else. But we say so. He contained. What do I mean by that? That he contained with head, as it were. He contained Bria, or then 2, and not of now. 1. 1 is a state of now. Then look, that was all above the Parsa. All our aim is after 6,000 years to correct ourselves from our world to Absolute. He was already in Absolute. 3, but not quite complete. His head was in the 2, Bria of them. His neck in the 4, upper Sfirot of Yetzirah, 2. That was his neck. The spiritual structure of the man is the forces which, as it were, reside in the head, higher forces, and the neck, lower forces, certain quality, of course. But of course, we speak not of the flesh and blood, although it is similar in structure. So his head and his neck were already above the Parsa at his birth, and then came under the Parsa. In 6 lower Sfirot of Yetzirah was his upper body. Upper body of Adam's, what we call the tree of life. Upper body means from neck to the navel, as it were. As it were seen spiritually, the tree of life. There, Adam was allowed to eat. So that is, at the birth, we need to see that he was. It is written, he was in paradise. What does paradise mean? He was put into paradise. Of course, it was also a place, physical paradise, geographically, because everything must match above with below. But where that interests us little is good for the historian. For us, irrelevant. His head and his neck were already in paradise. Paradise means that everything is spiritual, everything is life. Up to the Parsa may come the light of life. In the Parsa, not under the Parsa, but we have still built worlds, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. There's no light, light. There's no light, Chokhmah. Here at the Parsa there is what we call Masach, a screen. What is written in the Torah, the Bible. The Creator placed at the entrance of paradise an angel with a sword that cuts both ways, Archangel Michael. That's that screen. Here is the Parsa, to let no light come in here, because otherwise the light will be received for oneself, selfish as it were. Head and neck of Adam were already in paradise. What does this mean? He could already see it all. bright, all the connection he had, and the light of Chokhmah, the light of wisdom, he could already experience an absolute. And therefore, he could walk with Avaya, along with the Creator, for the Creator is, of course, everywhere. But the residence of the Creator is obviously where he is, where the light is, absolute. We will learn that the Creator for us is Ze'ah, Zeir Anpin. We will learn it all. But Adam walked here in the tree of life. Here is the paradise where he walked. But we say we are now only talking about his birth. There was still something to happen before he could really walk and do mental things. His upper body was in the 6 Sephirot of Yetzirah, so under the Parsha, and the lower body was in the 4 upper Sefirot of Asiyah, and his legs were in 6 lower Sefirot of Asiyah. We'll see from the birth. We know there's a spiritual law that nothing disappears in the spiritual. Remember that very well. And that is something one cannot understand. You just have to learn it. You have to learn it first. In our earthly minds, we cannot understand that. Everything we learn is tied to place in our thinking. With humans in our world, there is, for example, a cup on the table here. The next step is I move the cup to another place. The cup goes away from the first place, and then it takes another place. It cannot be in 2 places. It is absolutely different in the structure of the spiritual worlds. It's like in a movie, several frames in succession, and when you turn it fast, the image moves. If man is motionless, the frame stands still. So it is spiritual. If the cup was here and the next position is a different position, then the other remains always standing. We should all learn. That is inhuman. It is learning. Going out, as it were, to see things as if we are not in the body. There are always things that exist, you understand, but we cannot. And so correct our perception. The perception of our world is then. There is something, there is a bike, and then the bike is gone, which was stolen in our perception. You can say that it has been moved, but moved so that it was no longer findable. Each condition persists. Therefore, you need not be afraid that in Kabbalah something specific, things that you've learned, that it will be taken from you. All that existed before you started with Kabbalah. All frameworks exist. Nothing disappears. Also, not at the lowest level. It does not matter. You've been through something. You will experience. Everything continues to exist. The only thing is, it will perhaps be enlightened and corrected. That is, we should always learn that nothing disappears in the spiritual. If, say, once in a given state, the 70s, the hippie time, was very nice, good drinks, and enjoy the freedom. I also participated in it. I have no regrets. It's an experience. You should not want to be pious. And if you ask the Orthodox, they think, oh, he's not kosher. What is that? Absolutely different. Everything that you have experienced in your life is perfect. It was necessary because otherwise you would not be here. All your sins you have committed were also whispered to you, that you would come here, that you would go to work on yourself and nothing else. So you have to see it, and not that we come here all good guys. Absolutely different. If someone from birth already went to pray, such a person is not here, and that is why you also do not see the Jewish brethren. Those who are here already left behind that Orthodox, now they want to come to the Creator. That is quite different what we do. Not that we espouse holiness, and of those people, the Creator loves precisely those people who, through the harsh lessons of life, who are looking for, because you could yourself, which are looking for, because you cannot develop yourself without making mistakes. Apparent errors, so you must obligatory make mistakes. Not intentionally do it, but without making mistakes, how can you grow? If you are surrounded with comfort from your childhood, will it make you become a man? All those Orthodox boys who grow up in such an Orthodox environment, are they fully, in the eyes of the Creator, are they do they use all those powers of man. Just want to play a good guy, they feel that they are good. Never mind, they feel themselves high, and it's just the opposite. They lie below at the bottom. I mean it. I know what I'm saying. I do not mean humanly as a group. I do not attack them. I was also so. We have talked about that. So look well how Adam was born. His head was in Bria, and his legs in Asiyah. So next alignment of now, he was completely in holiness. He was not completely in paradise. He was not completely in Absolute. Only his head and neck were at birth in Absolute. Look what the Creator shows us. He was not only a good guy, he was not a good guy. Half of Adam was, as it were, his head and neck were orthodox, but his upper body and lower body and legs were somewhere below. We must be honest. We need to know what we're dealing with. Look how man was born, with the head and neck in paradise, but down. Why? The Creator wants us to taste all, and after all our experiences, that we would choose the good, and not that they tell us that's good, while you feel nothing. The whole idea is to us that you're going to feel what is right. Make adult, mature decisions and choices in what we do, which is something that you can buy nowhere. Nowhere can you find that but in Kabbalah. Look, Adam was totally in. Look, all the worlds to the point of our world are all holy, means also receive light. Only I have also said, up to the Parsa comes light Chochmah, and below the Parsa, what comes there is only light of mercy, of Hasidim. And that, of course, is immensely less than the minimal force in Atzilut. So below, Bria is the quality of Bria, and let's say Malchut of Atzilut. The lower part of Atzilut is like a distance between Saturn and 1 grain of sand at the Zandvoort, the beach. So you should see it. It is qualitatively, absolutely a different world. Totally different experience it means for us. Again, we see head in Bria and legs in Asiyah. So Adam was totally in the spiritual and with respect to the fixed state. Adam was, his legs were in 6 lower of Asiyah. And in our fixed state of the worlds is 6 Firot of Yetzirah. Consider then how high Adam was. His legs were already 6 Firot of Yetzirah. You see how high he was at birth. And why has he fallen? We know the creation was created in 6 days, in stages, of course. The first, the heaven and the earth. Then that, etc., as it was told in the story of creation. On the 6th day was the time that man should be created. And just after 12 on Friday, I say Friday, just words, Adam was born on the 6th day, put on earth. That too. Try not to fantasize. Do not try to redress it. Just listen to what I say. We shall soon learn what it was all about. And that coincide with, first, the worlds were created in all kind of creatures except man. If we talk about worlds, now after the worlds we also talk about those animals. Roots of the animals were already created. But the man was created shortly after 12. And then, just after 12, was the first rise in the world. What does it mean? The Creator had a plan, and we will see it all. We have already seen the plan of 10,000 years. We shall see. Not that the plan changed, but we will see what the original plan of the Creator was, and of course it is up to man, and we have seen man is the person responsible for the correction of good wherein is evil. We have seen that good and evil were the roots of good and evil were already created before Adam. You see, not that the world was perfect. We have seen that here too, for the breaking of the Kelim was already the roots of good and evil. So man was also put in the environment of what was right and wrong. There was nothing wrong with evil. You just have to know what to do with it. And do not say, I'm not going to do bad, only being good guy, which is not in the plan of creation. Then there was the first rise. What does that mean? The initial plan of the Creator was such: 6 days I create. In 5 days I create the whole creation. On the 6th day I create man. And then on the 6th day, the 2 rises of light come from above without human intervention. That was after 12 on the 6th day. Sixth day means 6th day of the week, and the week begins on Sunday. Sunday is the first day from Shabbat. The second day is Monday, and so on. And that coincided with the birth of the world and man's birth. And after 12 came the first rise of the worlds. Why? There was a light. Let's say when Mashiach comes, a light will come from above. From above, so not because of us, and that will then perform the final correction. So it was on the 6th day of creation. Came after 12 o'clock the first rise in the worlds, and of course the man is sitting in it. Man, we said man is in those worlds, is the inner part of the worlds. On the drawing, in column 4, we see the first rise of the world. And in addition to this column, we see man, because I cannot draw differently. In the spiritual, you can see that. But on the drawing is difficult. Here we see the rise. Here we see the first rise of the worlds. Look at the 2 and look at 4. At birth was only Atik, above the Tabur. And now we see, after 12 hours on the 6th day, Arich Anpin already rising to the place of Atik, and Atik goes 1 step up. We see also in parallel with the first reception, Galgalta, Ab, and Sag. And others are not eligible. Why? Since Absolute and everything else are a product of the lower side of Bina, and Bina is Bina, and Nekudot come of Sag. So that's the source. Therefore, we see the first rise of the worlds, that one comes already to the level of Sag. And man, here I also penned a column of the first rise of Adam, of course, along with the worlds. So the first rise and Adam is in there. And then I'll also show what he contains. What does it mean? His head is in Bria. It means that he contained Bria. We have seen at the birth of Adam and the worlds that his head was in Bria. Everything rises evenly upwards. The entire ladder rises. So on the first rise, with the Bria, in the Bria is the head of Adam. It is also now, has come up again a whole step. His neck and upper body is also in Yetzirah, and his lower body is already in the upper Parsah. And only his legs are below the Parsah, means that he also felt himself after the first rise a lot higher, spiritual, much closer to the Creator, and see what was the plan was always to make the worlds rise in Atzilut. For here we have said, all evil is below the Parsah. Means that he also felt himself after the first rise a lot higher, spiritual, much closer to the Creator, and see what was the plan was always to make the worlds rise in Atzilut. For we have said all evil is below the Parsah. The intention is that we do not shun evil, but the evil, as it were, make our corrections, that we get through it and bring that above the Parsah in Atzilut. So we see that in creation of the worlds, under the Parsah, were the 6 lowest Sfirot of Yetzirah and the 4 upper Sfirot of Asiyah. And 6 lower Sfirot of Asiyah, that from the worlds was still under Parsah, and that still had to go up. Look, Bria stood above the Parsah, including 4 upper Sfirot of Yetzirah stood above the Parsah, column 2. And then the 6 lower Sfirot of Yetzirah remain under the Parsah. I have indicated it with 4 and 6 to show how it is with man. I have divided it, head, neck is 4 top Sfirot of Yetzirah. That is to show how it is in man. It is related to man. Just look, do not try to understand. Just say that is the building of the Creator. There I want to live in. Do not understand, but gladly want it. I want, by what I hear, now to unite myself, merge with the only creative power, also, along with those worlds, rise as it were to Absolute. You feel it when it is said that the worlds go to Absolute. You also feel that something goes up. Everything is also within you. The Bria goes up, the man goes up. You should try it too. Though it's one step at a time, high, low, to form and start to feel. I absolutely could not understand it at first. When I first started with a rabbi in Israel, I could absolutely not understand what he was talking about. I could not understand, but I knew it was there. I knew if I did not experience, I would rather die. So it must be with you, rather death. Of course, not literally, but you should say rather die than that I do not experience it. Do not understand, absolutely impossible, but just look, yearn. In the break was a question. Where were the animals? They were also created in those 5 days. We have said the worlds were created in those 5 days. That is the situation of then. Too, also, the animals were then created. In that state, of course, the animals were not in absolute higher than today, but the animals were, for example, from Asiya and Yetzirah. Look how high were the animals. Our aim is now. We're all in our world or to Absolute. Our target is in 6,000 years to ascend to Absolute. We see that the animals of then found themselves somewhere in Asiya and Yetzirah. Which level was in animals? Which purity level, etc., was in animals? Therefore, we learned something. Why was granted to Adam and Chava to eat first? First, he was allowed to eat only plants and grass and stuff. Why not meat? And no one can answer. I came to the greatest rabbis, all the leaders, sages, understand absolutely nothing. But I was looking for it, and Zohar told me. Zohar did open the eyes of me. Everything I was looking for, everything I longed for. Because the animals of then at birth, at their creation, I mean animals, I mean meat, not animals, everything alive, not that need. Eating means correction. What we do, the eating, is nothing more than correction. At some level, that is correction. What does correction mean? If I eat what nutrients are, what is good in food, I take in, and what is not good, which is not good for me, comes into waste. Also is correction. Everything is correction. You should know. And okay, and my waste that can be eaten by mosquitoes and all sorts of other things. What is rubbish for me is food, good food for another. What is bad to me is good for another. That was for them. They were allowed to eat plants. Why? Plants still needed correction. If the man could incorporate it into himself as plant is eaten by man, then it turns a plant into animal, in the animal of man. And then can, just like humans, even more corrections. Transform in the human, you understand, and that's 2 steps up. Plants are then corrected, means also according to quality, and that had to happen because the man, Adam, had to eat, physically, but also spiritually. Where the plants came from still needed correction. Look at that. It was at his birth, his lower body was in Asiya, and upper body was in the 6 lower sferot of Yetzirah. So under the Parsha, we have said everything under the Parsha needs correction, should be elevated to Absolute, because there is what we call paradise. What is absolute perfection? So therefore Adam and the 6 lower sferot of Yetzirah and Asiya, that is the vegetable kingdom, and the 4 upper sferot of Yetzirah, there in the source, the root of animals. That was already corrected. Do you see that where the Parsha is, there ends the corrections, and we see that 4 sferot of Yetzirah, the 4 upper, are already above the Parsha. So those animals of then, which were created, were already corrected. so did not need correction anymore. Look at what level animals were. Therefore, man did not have to eat that, but after his fall, also the worlds fell down, and then also Yetzirah fell down to the place where the worlds are now, column 1. So Yetzirah fell all the way down from the 4 upper Sfirot of Yetzirah, which is the root of the animals. They fell. Look how they fell after the fall. And then was allowed, and he had to eat meat. Adam, to also elevate animals together, we have said animals, anything but man cannot correct itself. You understand? Only man can bring them up, and therefore only after the food it was allowed to eat meat. Why? They fell so deep down that especially the man was allowed to eat animals, to raise the animals, but originally it was not necessary. Also, when a person rises spiritually, he does not need to do that. It is not mandatory. As an example, to see how it works, we go even further, deeper by learning in Zohar. All those stories we will begin to understand by Zohar. There is truth in it, in these stories, but they do not understand. All the rabbis do not understand. Only Kabbalists know what I'm talking about. Some Kabbalists, not all of them, can tell a normal person, but the Jewish people absolutely do not know, with all their traditions, with everything, absolutely ignorant, 0.0. You have to learn it. It is given to this people to learn that it's yes or no. You do it or you do not have a right to exist. Everyone should know for himself, and then I feel so small, who must then learn. All the great rabbis who live only for our world, only for money and pleasure and good life in our world, they want nothing else than to make money, want success. I do not blame them. Who am I to blame them? Zohar blames them. I'm not talking about physical man. It's given to this people, given the operating system of the universe, and they are engaged in nonsense. That's what I mean. Zohar means. These people must absolutely learn. But where are they? I always say this, I have to speak because better that a Jew himself makes reproach to his people than you take away. It is well-intentioned not to do bad, but it is better that a Jew accuses his people than that the devil does that himself. As a father blames his child is very different from that a neighbor does that, or a policeman. We must learn to live above the national. It's difficult for some Jews. Cannot understand this. A man can be honest, absolutely, but they do not learn what is needed. They learn only for mass. Every time I say something to teach you, we do not see it, but it's. We continue with the correction of the animals. Animals they did not need then to correct. There was the first rise in the world. Look at what was the first rise in the world. His head was come even one step higher. On the 6th day of creation at 5 p.m. was the second rise. Hence, in the 6th day at 5 p.m., there is the second rise of light from above, and man also rises with it. The second rise, tier 5, and where man was. The man came at the second rise fully from the head to his legs in Absolute. The man rose. Adam came all the way in Absolute. What was then still further? Why was it necessary to sin? In between, before the time came, was the situation after the first rise. Look good. After the first rise, Adam was in Absolute except his legs, and legs correspond to Asiyah. Lower body is also 4 upper Sfirot of Asiyah, and legs 6 lower Sfirot of Asiyah. The Creator told Adam, "You shall not eat of the tree of knowledge." What is the tree of knowledge? That's what is placed, that is his lower body, as it were. Lower body is Asiyah. Lower body plus legs are full 10 Sfirot of Asiyah. Asiyah, wherever Asiyah is something from the real evil. For example, that we call snake. Snake is connected, is opposite Asiyah. We will all learn, but Asiyah was not Adam could receive light, except in his, to hear from above his head until his and in his upper body, he was allowed to receive light, but not under his lower body, in lower part of the body. But the intent of the Creator was that after his birth comes first a rise on Friday, then comes a second rise on Friday, then would still come the third rise on Shabbat itself during the day. On Shabbat would be the third rise, and then complete correction, as it were, would come. Complete perfection would then take place in Asiyah. And then they would never require those 10,000 years, 10,000 years of correction. We see that man is, absolutely to man, is the correction and the fulfillment of humanity depends on man and not the Creator. The Creator has built everything. Here is built everything. Suppose that Adam's sin was not. Look good. You will not get anywhere from the most honorable rabbis and prelates, including the Vatican. Nowhere you will hear that. It is given to me to give that to you. Is absolutely nothing of myself. All the knowledge rabbis give is of themselves. They feel strong, is from them, makes them great, gives honor. If you learn Kabbalah, no honor is in Kabbalah. If you want honor, you never come and experience in the timeless and infinite. There you must distance yourself from any kind of honor, pleasure, success, etc. And you remain a human being. The human side is multiplied, is huge, but no one sees it. A man looks only from outside. What was the sin of Adam? He had seen here at the first rise, he saw that he felt. Look, upper body and lower body were already not salute. Only the legs, not yet. Feet, legs. Who feels that there is something wrong? So Adam thought at the time, the whole purpose of creation is to make the light shine through all the way down. Yes or no? The whole idea is to let the light come to our world. Adam also wanted to, and there came to him. Who came to him? The snake. And the snake is the other side of Asiyah, from the world of Asiyah, actually from the Malchut of Asiyah. And who came to him, as it were, and said, look at that. If you now let the light downward, let's receive, then you fulfill the plan of creation. All creation is meant for the light to come completely down. And Adam felt himself a little like a King Kong. Why? He felt that even the lower body, as it were, already, look, lower body came already in absolute. You see, so he thought at that time, I'm perfect. And he knew man must, the last touch, he thought as I do now, zivuk. He knew he was clean. He gathered himself, thought he was already pure, for he felt in absolute. He felt now, I have the chance to finish the job. What was his fault? He used his head exactly what I tell you not to do. You must use your inner mind, but not your outer mind. And he wanted it. He said, I do it because of the Creator. He did not do it to bring pleasure to himself. He wanted to bring the Creator satisfaction. He wanted to do that. He wanted to completely let down the light because, in our eyes, because he have not been purified. It seems zivuk, copulation, is an earthly matter a man can do. It always comes from the head. See, seed always comes from the head, and not just the last formation, as is then seed, is also light. Seed is formed into liquid substance, but it comes from the higher, above, from the head of the man, just as it comes from Ze'ah and Malchut. So Adam thought in that way to accomplish it. That was his mistake. On the one hand, it is wrong. On the other hand, it is the plan of the Creator. Of course, because then, after the fall, he first fell to the world's Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah. And then he fell even further down to our world. And then it was necessary 6,000 years correction to finish it, and then another 1,000 years Shabbat, and then still 3,000 years. Why is it 10,000? 10 Sfirot. And why 10,000? Since Malchut is a single numbers, the light of Malchut is from 1 to 9. The light of Ze'ah are tens, is higher. The light of Bina, the bottom side of Bina, is hundreds. Abba and Ima is thousands, and Arichampin is tens of thousands. All Ze'ai Malchut should come up to 10,000. Suppose Adam had not sinned, how would it go? 6 days of creation we already have. Then in the evening, on the 6th day, on the evening begins Shabbat. All the Shabbat, what Jews do is correction, nothing else. Everything I talk about now is all Shabbat is the result of what I tell you. Why do they keep Shabbat? Do you think they know why they keep Shabbat? Of course, for the good, but they absolutely do not understand a thing about it. And that is a reproach of Zohar, not mine. What is Shabbat and why is Shabbat given to this people? On the 6th day in the evening, at the nightfall, the day starts with Jews because it is so written, and each new day begins in the evening. So it is, we learn in Zohar. On the 6th day in the evening, Shabbat begins. The start of Shabbat would correspond to what we have learned, 1,000 years of Shabbat, which corresponds to the evening, would correspond to the 6th day in the evening when Shabbat begins, which corresponds to the 7th day as the day begins in the evening. Therefore, it is the 7th day, and then we have made a parallel after the fall. The 1,000 year of Shabbat must be, but that would be all accomplished on that evening, the 7th day. Therefore, it is set that in the evening prior to Shabbat in our time, from the Torah was given to Jews that they must, in the evening, on Shabbat, Friday evening, begin with special prayers to make these corrections, as it were, to do those corrections what Adam had violated on that evening. Adam sinned during the day, but in the evening would come the 7th day, instead of the 7,000 years of Shabbat. Then, next morning, so on the first Shabbat, after the creation, then in the morning would be a correction. An additional light would come, what we call, which then coincides with the 8,000 years after the fall, and therefore is also set the prayer on Shabbat. Then after morning prayers on Shabbat is still an additional prayer. In the morning now, in our time, for as long as the Jewish people exist, and that corresponds, that extra prayer, Musaf, extra prayer of Sunday morning with the 9th millennium, and the noon prayer, for in the evening starts already the 1,000 years. On Shabbat would then take place 4 corrections, which correspond to the 4,000 years we said, and therefore those prayers have been introduced. And the people keep saying, and therefore it is also in our time when Shabbat enters the prayer, a Jew feels an absolute, absolutely. But of course it is not our merit, just as it was not the merit of Adam. But ours still a bit, though, because we have prepared ourselves for Shabbat. Also ordinary Jew, for example, he does not understand what he does. The whole week he works towards Shabbat. It seems to him that Shabbat, it makes him live, and that is also a kind of a correction, absolutely correction. Of course, also the ordinary Orthodox, let alone if he knew what he was doing, not only that he says prayers, the noon prayer is a special something to correct oneself, according to the plan of creation, to rise to absolute. Therefore, if I say something about my people, I mean always, had they tasted some, had they but, they will all knew what is written in the Zohar. You do not have to be intelligent for that, and they all say the Zohar is upper, sacred. But we are also so low now, all rabbis also say, we are so low we cannot even touch it. And I, the smallest of all, it has been given to me to do so. I definitely did not want to do it, but I am burdened with it. I wanted to enjoy my pension. That's what I say. All those holy, strong men, and I have to do it all. That's my reproach. They should have done it. And that I would listen to a great rabbi, but where are they? Of course, there are great Kabbalists, much bigger than I. Who am I? The lowest of all. But I mean, you do not see them. They do tremendous work beside the Creator and do massive correction, but they do not do this work. They do not give it to the non-Jews. But what I mean, Adam wanted to do a good job, but he has fallen in that way. Does that mean that in the plan of creation was something wrong? Something that was not foreseen? Of course, everything was foreseen. Only the choice is to man. If Adam had then listened to the one prescription of the Creator to not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is lower body for him, he was not to eat thereof, the light should not go lower to his lower body. Of course, he had contact with his wife Chava, absolutely. But now I don't yet want to tell what it was. In the Zohar we will learn it. We will learn all. Also, what his descendants have been up to, Cain and Abel. Abel was a good guy, but was also a great villain. Of course, we must not say so. Their level was gigantic. We cannot compare them with people of our world. I mean, also, they have failed to listen to the voice of the Creator. Also, they all wanted to understand the Creator with their minds, and so they all fell. And that is a lesson for us, because if we now try to understand with our minds, our earthly reason, we absolutely fall outside the basket, as Adam did. In every generation, people do it again, exactly the same, because we are a result of that sin of Adam. We should have said to the serpent, which had advised him, that told him, "Snake, you're right, for you must know the snake is always right. Your minds can never be persuaded. Our earthly mind can never be persuaded. You understand? You also should never argue with your earthly mind." Just like Adam did and Hawa. If you're going to argue, your earthly sense is that snake. That's the serpent, which is the impure forces, opposite of the Malchut of Asiyah. All those forces, and with each ascent, we will feel that we will pull up. As we learn Zohar, is absolutely so. Step by step. But first, just watch. Then you know, as we embark on Zohar, a little bit of what it's about. It's impossible to explain it just because we still do not have a sense of the spiritual, which we all have to develop. That requires surrender. You must have a place within yourself where you can surrender to the higher mind, and there all earthly laws play absolutely no role. All the laws of Newton and others, the physical laws, do not play a role anymore with you. You have a place within yourself that is not subject to Earth's gravity. You're here not subject to the law of gravitation. Of course, you are subject, but in that place in yourself, you are not subject to it. Only from that place you can experience something of the spiritual you understand. 99.99% learn Kabbalah and absolutely do not understand what it is about. They try to bring the Kabbalah in their earthly intellect. Absolutely impossible. That's just as what Adam had tried to do with his earthly mind. Fulfill the plan of the Creator. Step by step, it is very difficult to go into that matter if you do not understand. It does not matter, it's very good, but better if you do not understand, definitely. But you have to want to live there. You have to tell yourself that what I learn, with it I put myself in accordance with the laws of the universe, which will bring me life, living, infinite, eternal life, where we will experience the timeless that a human can then experience. In no way can you come into this world without a clear study. How can you experience the light? By religion it cannot. Religion makes you stupid, absolutely stupid. Does not matter what religion. Look at my brethren, dumbasses, absolutely stupid asses. And they think they are so good. If you look at any religion, to any representative, wonderful, magnificent, I mean stupid. Stupid is not anything terribly bad. When I say stupid, in Hebrew the word donkey, hamor, I often use this word donkey. Donkey means chamor, and chamor also means matter. When I say donkey, I mean that he lives entirely in the material. Those are also all representatives of all religions. It's just a child of nature, and the idea is that we overcome our nature. You understand? We are born to receive, but we say, enough. I do not want to receive. If I receive, I'm addicted, the kind of addiction. Does not matter what I receive. I'm addicted. Then in the spiritual, I cannot resemble the Creator. For very elect, He has given. And then you say, no, I do not receive. Must I then receive? I'm going to look like you. I want to be a smart guy. I'm not going to receive for myself, and therefore I get it in my life, my liberty, which is more for sale with no money, which is not for sale with no amount of money. All of Hollywood learn Kabbalah, but do you think they know something about it? Do you think it will take them to the spiritual? No. But alone that they engage, orient on the spiritual, already gives a lot, and therefore awakens the world, and that is why they come to Kabbalah. Therefore, my people will also wake up, absolutely. The idea is that we look. Man is so created. Creation is also created so that the mind and heart, his mind and feelings cannot be pulled apart. What have they done here in the entire history of mankind? They disassembled mind from feeling. Those that have feelings have chosen for feeling, for heart. Those are Oriental people, Oriental mentality. I mean the situation where the person is in. I'm not talking about people that does not interest me. But all the Oriental teachings work with the heart. Wonderful, but under the understanding, and they have also severed their minds. They do not use their minds. They use this, but as something additional. The other side of the coin is the Western people who tore off feeling and use only their intellect, and can never in this manner come to fulfillment, nor an Oriental with his heart. Therefore, Westerner is always attracted by the Oriental. Tibet, all these other things, gurus, why are they attracted? The Westerner is like a car with manual gearbox from inside, completely adjusted, does not know what God is. God is for him in the head, and the Oriental does know what God is, but only under his mind. He understands God only with his heart, and therefore any Easterner who is really Oriental looks at a Westerner as someone like, he knows that a Westerner does not know what God is. They look just like to a piece of meat, despite the fact that they are completely under the intellect. But they feel that they know God, but they look to the Westerner as a godless. A mechanical man is the Oriental, while the Westerner from his side. He has from within the sense of pedantry. Watching an Oriental as a primitive rail, and underdeveloped, therefore was justified in history that they wanted to convert everyone. Mind dominates with the Westerner. Nor that Oriental nor Westerner corresponds with man as man is meant to be. Because the intention is that man neither let his intellect prevail nor his feeling, which cannot be separated from each other, that the separation is man-made. Westerners made the separation of mind, therefore he says divide and conquer, and the Oriental in a different way, nirvana, is then in such a pose, needs nothing. Something else does not interest him. That's their way of complete surrender to sensual experiencing of the Creator. And neither one nor the other is good. Do you understand? Neither corresponds to the laws of the universe. And we will learn so that our mind, all the studies we do, undetected, something will happen to us, but you should never want to rule with your mind. You will get nowhere. You need to experience. Experience is something else that will happen to us if we go deeper into the Kabbalah. All the excesses of our mind will be nibbled away. Not what you do in your business, but all your earthly life remains. Nothing changes in the spiritual. Everything that had been remains, but all what was too much your mind, your domination of reason, with which you bother yourself for experiencing the eternal and for experiencing to get your own fulfillment, is nibbled away, as it were. And who has too much on his heart will also be nibbled away, which gets more reason, inner reason. Because the first part of Zohar brings to the inner feeling that we will understand all those forces that I now hear drawing with all kinds of words. We can learn those words, but hard to fathom. Hard to fathom them, to feel. For man has these two aspects within himself. One aspect which in himself reason and feeling together fused together as one. Can you not let one dominate? Intelligence that pervades feeling, or feeling that pervades understanding. Then you already have a division within yourself. Then you have a kingdom within a kingdom. How can it all be? The Zohar will bring us again a sense of the eternal, timeless motion without movement, perfect, absolute. And the second part, the tree of life of Ari, will bring us deep inner understanding, the mental side. Of course, again, all intertwined with each other. Not just mental, because that does not exist. In the eternal does not exist mental as being separate or emotional. It does not exist, you understand. Man is made that both are unity in himself. Understanding stays in complete harmony with your heart. The one helps the other, and we will all learn on the basis of the creation story, because the story of creation is nothing else than the 7 lower sfirot: Hesed, Gubra, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut. The 7 days of creation. On the first day was created Hesed, right side. On the second day, Gubara was created, which is the heavy din, severity. And the second day of creation arose disputes therewith. So basically, from the second day of creation came a bit, as it were, the root of discord, which one should bring to unity. And the third day, which is Tiferet, and the Tiferet has in itself both. That is the middle line, perfection, and therefore only at the third day is written Tov, good. It is not written with the second day, because the work of the second day was not finished yet. Only on the third day, when it comes to Tiferet, the middle line, to perfection, it is said good, but not on the second day is written good. All these things we learn, all forces that we experience in the world, we will bring back on the basis of all the laws of the universe. It is inconceivable that is something we will learn. There is nothing like it. Everything is, to say the least, childish chatter and bickering. I have searched a lot, have seen a lot of chokhmah, wisdom, integrity. I'm just a soldier compared to those true saints who are so holy, so full of integrity, but it does not interest them. There are always huge persons in this, people who are very close to the Creator, who are immeasurably high, but they are not known. They do not advertise, don't give courses. What can he tell another? And I must do it, because when after me comes the next chance, nobody knows. I'm going to give to absolute laymen Zohar and Ari, which is unprecedented. Please review drawing 41. Drawing 41 clearly shows the body of Adam, the legs, and the development and the fall of Adam.